Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea podcast. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, here on my YouTube channel, and I am so pleased and humbled and honored that you would decide to take part of your weekend to join me on the daily podcast here. This is, of course, a show where mostly what I do is take the questions that you guys send into me. How do you send in a question or a topic? It's simple. Just email me anytime at thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. That's the John Campea Podcast @gmail.com. Send on in your questions. I pick out 6 or 7 every single day. And also a special shout out to my Patreon supporters. You know, when I decided to leave the corporate world and stop working for major corporations and to do my YouTube channel just on my own, I needed some support and the ability to do that. And my Patreon supporters are the ones who have made that possible. My Patreon supporters get exclusive audio-only versions of the podcast every single day and the Star Wars Talk Tuesday podcast. They get exclusive access to our Facebook group where I'm in every single day. We do an exclusive live video chat every single week. So anyway, if you want more information about being a Patreon supporter of mine, look at this graphic here and look in the description of the video. You'll find a link there and go and get more information. And also, I give priority to the questions on the podcast to my Patreon supporters as well, just as a way of thanking them for actually contributing to making the 70, 80, 90 videos that I make every month. Okay, so with that shameless plug out of the way, let's move on to the first topic of the day. And the first topic today comes to us from one of the aforementioned Patreon supporters. It comes to us from Pierce Kiger, who writes, "Hey, John, I know you're not a big fan of casting questions, but I'm too curious to pass this one up. With the success of Logan and Deadpool, the popularity of X-23, and the rumors of an X-Force movie, how do you see Fox handling Wolverine? Personally, while I love the girl from Logan, I'd love to see Sofia Boutella to play an aged-up X-23 in X-Force. While not the greatest actress, she is gaining popularity and getting better with each film, and she clearly has the athleticism for the role." All right, thanks a lot for the question, Pierce. And yes, first of all, Logan, to me, still the best movie of the year. Not the best comic book movie of the year. To me, Logan is still pretty much without very much competition. It's still the best movie of the year. Now, we're getting into that period of the year here in a month or two where the Oscar caliber films are going to start to come out and we'll see some real competition. But yeah, surprise, surprise. I mean, who would have thought at the beginning of the year that not only would a Fox film be the best comic book movie of the year so far. I mean, we still have Thor Ragnarok and Justice League to come, but it would be the best movie of the year, not a DC movie, not a Marvel movie, but a Fox film. So anyway, and one of the big reasons to me that Logan worked so well was because of the little girl playing X-23. It was phenomenal. One of the best child performances in a film I've ever seen. She is one of the big reasons. Now, yes, Hugh Jackman, maybe the performance of a career. Yes, Patrick Stewart, maybe the best performance of his storied career. But one of the things that tips it from being a great movie to being the best movie of the year so far, I think, was that little girl's portrayal of X-23. She was insanely good, especially for a child that age. I mean, that would have been an amazing performance for any actor of any amount of experience, and she just nailed it. So, okay. Now we talk about this character X-23, very popular. Could Sofia Boutella be a good X-23? Well, on a couple of things, you're right. She is becoming more popular. I mean, she popped on the scene, became very popular in Kingsman because she looked fantastic in that. Then she was in The Mummy, and she was recently in Atomic Blonde, and she did a fairly solid job in Star Trek Beyond. So her stock is rising. To me, though, she can't be X-23. She just can't. For a couple of reasons. Let's start with the smaller reason, which is you pointed it out in your question yourself. I'm a fan of Sofia Boutella. Everybody, if you've seen any of my reviews of any of her movies, you know I am a fan of Sofia Boutella. But even though I am a fan of hers, I'm sober about where her acting chops are right now. Can she have a major role in a film? If X-23 is maybe a tiny role, maybe, but is Sofia Boutella, is she at her development as an actress? Because remember, she only started acting recently. She was a dancer. By the way, oh my God, if you didn't know Sofia Boutella was a dancer, jump on YouTube, look up Sofia Boutella dancing. She is like top tier in the world, not top tier for a celebrity. She is top tier in the world. Like she's in the top 1% of best dancers on the planet. She's insanely good. Like it's crazy. I'm not somebody who's into watching dancers on YouTube, but you can't help but watch this girl dance. She's unbelievable, like God-given talent dancing. Anyway, so I don't know that she's at the point that in her talent development, and look, to me, it's always the number one thing. Fuck the way the person looks, fuck everything else. It's about acting talent. And I'm a fan of Sofia Boutella. I like the development she has right now, but is she at the point now that she could carry a film, that she could be a major lead in a film? And I just don't know that she is. Actually, no, I'll go with, I don't think she is yet. Could she get there? Absolutely. But I don't think she's there yet. Like a lot of people say but she was so amazing in Star Trek Beyond. I thought she was okay. She played the role well, but let's face it, that role she played didn't require Daniel Day-Lewis. It was more about physicality. But anyway, so even though I'm a fan of Sofia Boutella and I don't want to see her rushed into a major role when she's not ready to do it yet, I'd rather studios take their time with her so she can really reach her potential. And I just don't think she's there yet. But the biggest reason that I don't think Sofia Boutella could play X-23 is this. Sofia Boutella is French. She's French and a little bit of something else. I'm trying to remember what it is. But anyway, she's French. And if you're going to be even try to be remotely consistent, like continuity, schmontinuity, but if you want to try to be even remotely consistent with the X-23 character from Logan, then it's not just an actress who can learn a few Spanish phrases. You need an actress who, if not speaks perfect fluent Spanish, probably her native tongue is Spanish. Because one of the great things about X-23, I thought gave her so much character. The way she swapped in and out between English and she's cussing out Logan speaking in Spanish. I thought that was awesome. I think that becomes a necessity for the role. For me, if I'm a producer at Fox, that is a point of necessity. And that's not Sofia Boutella. So I'm a little bit concerned because I don't think her acting chops are quite there yet. I'd like to see a better actress, maybe who's been acting longer than she is. I don't care if it's a no-name, but somebody who's been acting and training in the art of acting longer and their talent levels at a higher level. I think I'd rather see that. But even more importantly, I think you have to nail that bilingualism to be able to flow back and forth between the two language fluently, perfectly. And I don't think that's her. I don't think that's her yet. So I'm a fan of Sofia Boutella. I love seeing her in movies. I can't wait to see her in her next movie, but I don't think she's ready to take on a character like that. Anyway, that's just my thought. Thanks a lot for the question. We move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from another Patreon supporter of mine, Christopher Robinson, who writes, I was wondering if you've heard anything about the new film Devil in the White City movie with Leonardo DiCaprio set to play HH Holmes, America's first serial killer. And what are your thoughts on this project? Yeah, thanks a lot. I got excited. Now, news for this came out a while ago, but there's this new movie called Devil in the White City? And it's about, as the question just read, Leonardo DiCaprio playing like one of the first serial killers. And it's going to be directed, surprise, surprise, by Martin Scorsese. Okay, so first of all, if you're going to have a film directed by Martin Scorsese starring Leonardo DiCaprio, track record and history has proven that's something to get excited about. The subject matter is something to get excited about. To see, after seeing, Leo play a twisted character in Django, the idea of him playing a serial killer is awesome to me. That could be incredible. Now, I do know this. It's being, is it Billy Ray? Let me pull it up. I wrote it down. Yeah, it's Bill Ray. Sorry. Not to be confused with Billy Ray Cyrus. It's Bill Ray. The screenplay is being written by a guy by the name of Bill Ray. Now, Bill Ray also wrote the Tom Hanks film, Captain Phillips. And that was a terrific film, beautifully written film. I'm the captain now. Anyway, so he wrote Captain Phillips, and he also wrote the first Hunger Games, the screenplay for Hunger Games. He clearly didn't write the book. This is a guy who's got some serious writing chops. So you got this guy writing the script, being directed by Martin Scorsese, based on the story of one of America's first serial killers, starring one of the best actors on the planet, Leonardo DiCaprio. What is there not to be excited about? This sounds amazing. Now, obviously, we've heard Martin Scorsese's name in the news a lot lately with the whole Joker thing and the DC universe. There hasn't been really any movement on the film. Now, Leonardo DiCaprio is also acting as a producer on the film as well. So there's that to keep in mind. But as far as I know, and what I know could be very limited here, but as far as I know, there hasn't really been any movement on the project yet. So I don't believe there's a release date. I haven't heard about when it's scheduled to start shooting it. I think there was a rough date they had to start shooting, but I think that date got bumped. So I believe the film's going to happen. As of right now, though, just don't expect it in 2018. You know, it could be a while. It could be 2019, could be 2020 at this point. But yeah, what's there not to be excited about this? This has like a Best Picture contender written all over it. This has Leo's second Academy Award kind of written all over it. So let's just hold back, take a breath, and let's see what happens with it. Thanks a lot for the question, man. All right, the next question comes to us from Sean Keefe, who writes, hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Sean. Hi, John. Huge fan of your videos. Thank you so much, Sean. I recently rewatched Star Trek Beyond, speaking of Sofia Boutella, and it got me wondering if we'll ever see a fourth installment. I know that this isn't nearly as big of a franchise as, say, Star Wars, but I feel like these new movies have been consistently entertaining and would love to see more from this cast. Thanks a lot for the question, man. Yeah, count me as one of the big fans of what I call the JJ Star Trek, of the JJ Universe Star Trek, even though he didn't direct the last one. He's still a producer on it, so we call it the JJ Star Trek. I've been a fan, honestly, of all three of them. Now, I know a bunch of people didn't like Into Darkness. I did. I enjoyed Into Darkness. Sue me. I thought it was really fun. Did it have a couple of cringe moments in it? Yes, absolutely. I'm not going to deny that. But I still think overall, as a package, I thought the movie was entertaining. I really liked the first one. And I thought Into Darkness, or not Into Darkness, but Beyond could be the best one. I mean, it's great. Beyond, to me, when I did my review of it, and I still believe this, Star Trek Beyond, to me, is the best amalgamation of old TV classic Star Trek with modern filmmaking sci-fi sensibilities. Because some people have criticized, fairly enough, that the new JJ Star Treks have been more leaning, like they've leaned away from the classic feel of the TV series and what it was about to more modern sci-fi action film. And that's a fair assessment. I still think they were good movies, but that's a fair assessment. I really thought Beyond was a beautiful marriage and a really nice mixture of bringing the feel and themes of the old classic Star Trek series with and merging them with the modern sci-fi action film, bringing them together into one. And I thought they worked. Now, they released that first trailer with Sabotage, with the Beastie Boy Sabotage, and that was a terrible trailer, and everybody hated it. And I think that hurt the movie a lot. Putting out a really bad first trailer will hurt your movie. And that hurt the movie. But then when you see the movie and the song Sabotage plays and you see it in context, you're like, holy crap, this actually works. This actually works really well. They just shouldn't have used it for the trailer. Anyway, on to the question about whether or not we're going to get a fourth one. I know Paramount is planning on a fourth one. As a matter of fact, they've already announced that they've got their basic story for the fourth one and that they're planning on Chris Hemsworth, Thor himself, to come back, because a lot of people forget Chris Hemsworth is in the first JJ Star Trek movie. He's Captain Kirk's dad. He's George Kirk. He's the guy who saves the ship and sends Captain Kirk and his mother out to safety and all that at the beginning of the movie. That was Chris Hemsworth before he was Thor. Anyway, they're already talking about the movie is going to involve some time travel, and that Chris Pine will be in it, obviously, as Captain Kirk, and Chris Hemsworth will come back to reprise his role as Captain Kirk's dad, and that's fascinating to me. Now, they made that announcement before they realized that Star Trek Beyond wasn't going to make nearly as much money as they were hoping, and nearly as much money as it deserved. So that might have put the pause on the project for a bit. But the last time I spoke to somebody from Paramount, the plan was still to do that next Star Trek movie. They're not rushing it. A lot of people are very busy, but they're still planning on doing a fourth one. So I would say I would be surprised. I wouldn't rule it out that it gets canceled. I wouldn't rule that out, but I would be surprised if it got canceled. They're certainly not doing themselves any favors with this CBS TV series they're doing, Star Trek Discovery. This looks like a pile of junk. They're not doing themselves any favors they're not protecting the brand. So I don't know. We'll have to see, but I would be surprised if they didn't do the fourth one. All right. Thanks a lot for the question, man. And we move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Stephen Starr. And Stephen Starr writes, why are some comic book properties off limits to use on TV and movies at the same time? I mean, they say they can't use a certain hero on TV because they have a big plan for them on the big screen. Yet they use Superman on small screen and big screen. Can't get much bigger than him. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Stephen. Yeah, so basically, look, I'm going to tell you right now, I defend Warner Brothers' decision and Marvel's decision on not allowing certain characters to have a TV character and a movie character at the same time. I just talked about it with the Star Trek story. It's about protecting the brand. You need to protect the brand because if you botch Superman on television, that hurts the image of Superman. And you're a fool if you don't think hurting the image of a character in one medium will have some ramifications and affect how the fans perceive and ultimately support the movie version of the character. So you got to be very careful. With Superman, I'll be honest with you, I was really surprised when they said they were going to use Superman in Supergirl, the TV show. I was really surprised. And I'll be honest with you, I don't watch Supergirl. I tried the first few episodes. The show was not for me, and I bailed on it. So I didn't think the show was very good. Okay, but I've only seen a couple of episodes. Keep that in mind. My fear when I heard they were bringing Superman is that Superman's only role in the show would be to put over Supergirl. That's an old wrestling term. Like you bring in a jobber, somebody, a wrestler who never wins. That wrestler's only job is to make the star wrestler look good, right? That's called putting them over. That wrestler's job is only to put over the more popular wrestler. I was really worried when they announced that Superman was going to be in the Supergirl show, that would be the case. That it would be a situation where they're just looking for another character, a big major character to come over and put over Supergirl, to make Supergirl the real star, because it's Superman. Supergirl is a spin-off character of Superman. Superman shouldn't play second fiddle to anybody, not even Batman. And I haven't seen any of the episodes, so take this with a massive grain of salt. I haven't seen any of the episodes of Supergirl with Superman in it, but I'm told, and maybe I'm being told wrong. Oops, sorry, I dropped something. Maybe I'm being told incorrectly, but I'm being told that, yeah, John, your fears came true. They're basically using Superman just to put Supergirl over. And that bothers me, and I think that will hurt the image of the Superman character. I do. Now, why did they, I don't know. Maybe the reason they let Superman go on the show is because maybe they figured the image of Superman is already tarnished a little bit, because not everybody, for some inexplicable reason, not everybody loved Man of Steel, which still confounds me because I think that movie is brilliant. But anyway, not everybody liked Man of Steel. Not everybody liked Batman vs. Superman. Maybe they felt like the image of Superman was already a little bit tarnished. Maybe they thought putting him on Supergirl could improve the image of Superman. I don't know, maybe. Batman's another story. I would fall out of my chair in shock if they ever let a different version of Batman pop up on television. I don't think they're going to do it in Gotham. I know the last season's season finale and the cliffhanger kind of alluded to Batman because Bruce is now on the rooftop and all. I get that, but I would fall out of my chair in shock. It's possible. Anything is possible. But man, I would be shocked if they actually let Batman appear in that show, or Batman appear in Arrow, or Batman appear in Flash, or Batman appear in Legends of Tomorrow. I would be shocked if they did that, because they know Batman, despite whatever drama is going on, Batman is their crown jewel. Batman is their most valuable IP. They know it. We know it. And they're going to be very, very protective of that Batman IP. And I'll be honest with you, I like the idea of separating the television and movie worlds, and I like having different characters. I don't mind that they're going to have Flash. I know some people are upset. I don't mind that they're going to have Flash on movie and television. That's cool. Flash ain't Batman. I'm not saying he's not as cool of a character in the comics. I'm not saying that at all. So all you Flash fans, don't get your underwear in a twist here. I'm a big fan of Flash. I like Flash very much, okay? But no matter how big of a fan of the Flash you are, you've got to acknowledge that as far as IP and brand value to the overall scope of Warner Brothers, Flash is a drop in the bucket compared to the value of the property of Batman. I mean, it just is. I'm not saying he's a better character. I'm just saying. Although Batman is the best character. So anyway. So yeah, I think that's why. It's all about protecting IP. It's all about protecting brand. It's about being very careful and stewarding what. And I think we're going to see with this Star Trek fiasco going on CBS All Access, I think you're going to see a living example of a property's IP getting damaged. That I just think the overall brand of Star Trek is going to get damaged by this show. And we'll see it in action. Anyway, thanks a lot for the question. Insightful question, man. All right, we move on now to the next question, which comes to us from Andre Soto. And Andre Soto writes, I'm a huge fan of the first 2 seasons of Arrow, aren't we all? And as with most people, felt the following seasons were lacking in feel and overall narrative. My question is this. Do you think the reason Arrow seemed to lack in the last few seasons is due to the producers taking on too many projects and TV shows? I'm a huge fan of The Flash, not so much the other 2 shows, but even the last season of The Flash was not nearly as good for me. Thanks a lot for the question, Andre, and you're not the only person asking that. I've had a few people tweet me and Facebook and email me asking questions that are similar to that. It's like, hey, do you think the problem here is that Greg Berlanti and some other of the creative heads are just taking on too much responsibility? I'm going to say the answer to that question is no. Because with each show, they have teams of people that work with them, and they'll diversify the teams that work across those shows. And each one of those teams is loaded, one would presume, with talented people. So I've never felt that the problem with Arrow moving forward, and I'm actually am a big fan of Flash Season 3. I don't think it was as good as Flash Season 1, but I am a fan of Flash Season 3. But still, did it decline a touch? Sure, I'll give you that. Why not? I'll give you that. I've never felt, though, or sensed that the problems that Arrow developed, in my opinion, and a lot of people don't think there are any problems with Arrow, and that's totally fine. I'm just talking from my perspective, okay? I've never sensed that the problems that Arrow developed, or the perceived dip in quality in Flash, I never got the sense that they were as a result of somebody not paying enough attention to it. You know, I never got the sense that, well, clearly they're just throwing these scripts out as fast as they can. I never got that sense. I always got the sense, like for me with Arrow, at least at any rate, it came from some key decisions that they made about their story that ruined for me the arc of the story. Their choice and their decision on how they handled the Laura Lance situation in Arrow is ultimately what made me bail on Arrow. It wasn't that, man, I just feel like week in, week out, the scripts, they're just lacking. I feel like they needed to pay more attention to the scripts. No, it's that they made some bigger picture bad ideas. And then when you have big picture bad ideas and those bad ideas become your North Star, even though you're putting in all the work and even though you have talented groups of teams working with you, you're kind of doomed from the start if your North Star is a bad idea. And I just found that with Arrow, they just had a couple of key bad ideas for how to handle their story and how to handle certain characters. And when those basic elements became their guiding North Stars, it becomes problematic and it becomes a problem. I feel the same way about Flash. If there was a dip in quality for Flash Season 3, I never felt like it was laziness or lack of attention or, you know, that it was somehow being neglected, that the show was being neglected by its creators. I never felt that at all. I just felt maybe some of their decisions with Savitar probably could have been better. Probably some decisions they made with the whole love interest situation. I think it was key things that led them in that direction. And that, I think, is what hurt them. Honestly, I don't think it was an issue of their attention is too much divided. I think they've got talented people that work with them. You know, when I was over at Collider and I'm running this whole thing, you know, I'm the showrunner on each one of the shows, and the show stayed excellent. But I didn't, except for Movie Talk, I kept a very close rein on Movie Talk, and I was very, very hands-on with Movie Talk, and I was ultimately completely, you know, dedicated to that show. But when it came to Heroes or Jedi Council or Mailbag or, you know, Schmodown or other things like that, it's not like, well, John's attention is too far spread out. How the quality of all those shows are going to, no. I had John Schnepp. So while I was the head guy of all the shows, I had John Schnepp, and he's looking after Heroes. So I just work with John Schnepp and make sure everything with Heroes is going right. With Jedi Council, I had the great Christian Harloff. So I just work with Christian Harloff, and I know Christian Harloff's going to take care of those other details, and I just have to approve everything. When it came to the Schmodown, you had, you know, Mark and Christian and, I'm forgetting the dude's name. Forgive me, but the dude who does all the writing for the questions. He wasn't on our staff, but we did pay him. And I'm forgetting his name. Please forgive me. But at any rate, they were looking after it. So like in Mailbag, you know, we had technical people really setting everything up. So like, while I was like the head of all these shows, we didn't have to worry about each show suffering because I've got too many shows to look after. No, I had teams of people in place with each show, and I just had to give basic oversight. And that, I think, is the situation with this DCCW universe that, yeah, now they've got like 3-4 shows. They're looking expanded 5, 6, or do they have 5 now? Anyway, it's, yes, they do have a lot of shows, but it's not like one guy writing the scripts for all 5 of the shows. You got some key leaders, and they've got teams of people for each one, and they just give oversight to each one. So whatever the problems are with Arrow or Flash, I don't think the problems are neglect, because I think they're getting a lot of attention. All right, now we move on to the final question of the day. And the final question for this Saturday also comes to us from another one of my Patreon supporters, comes from Raymundo, who writes, many have repeatedly asked if Warner Brothers will be making more movies outside the DCEU. Well, because we already know they're doing the Joker one. They say it as if Warner Brothers has enough money to pump out 4 or 5 of these movies per year. While these movies, without a doubt, make loads of money for the studio, is it possible for a studio to make so many? Very fair question. The answer is maybe. You see, I don't think the problem here is that of money. I mean, in 2016 alone, Warner Brothers distributed over 20 films. They didn't necessarily produce all 20 of them, but they were just a distributor on a number of those films. But overall, they put out 20 movies in 2016. They have the finances that they can put out 4 to 5 Warner Brothers DC films per year. They have the finances. The money's not the problem. I mean, they can't put them out year after year and lose money on them. That would be disastrous. But they do have the money easily to crank out 4 or 5 films, assuming that those films break even or make a little bit of profit. That's all they need them to do. The big question is that of, look, Warner Brothers is a certain size. Can they administratively, can they creatively, do they want to work with 6 different directors a year? Do they want their producers to have to oversee so many movies? Because this is a different situation than just the individual television shows, right? It's slightly different. Because you want your producers and your creative heads to be directly involved more heavily with each one of these films, because you have a cinematic universe that has to all be tied together and work together properly. And that becomes the bigger problem, is practically, from a pragmatic point of view, from a logistical point of view, is it healthy to try to do like 5 or 6 of these a year? Probably not. Probably not. I think you're going to want to rein that in a little bit. You know, 3 years good. Maybe the odd year do 4 or 5, 6, 7. Now you're pushing it, I think, a lot. But the finances, the money part isn't the issue. And honestly, I think Warner Brothers is also in a position where they just had their first critically and fan universal praised movie with Wonder Woman. They need to follow that up with 1 or 2 more before they start talking about or thinking about putting out 5, 6, or 7 movies a year. You can't put out 3 films that are divisive. then put out one film that gets a lot of praise and think, okay, now we're in the clear. And I think Warner Brothers are smart enough. I think they've got the smart enough people in place that they know this. They know this. That's why we heard them say a while ago, look, we're going to pump the brakes a little bit. We're going to take a breath till after Justice League comes out. Now, we're hearing a lot of announcements and plans and things like that, but they're not really moving full throttle on a lot of stuff. Obviously, Aquaman, because that's in production, but they're not moving full throttle on a lot of stuff. I think Warner Brothers is showing a lot of wisdom. I think they're taking a breath. Just because we hear a lot of frantic ideas coming out, it does make it sound like a mess, absolutely. But as long as they practically don't move too fast and, you know, it's fine that they say, we got plans for this, 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 and it sounds ridiculous. That's fine. As long as in the real world, they're moving slow. And in the real world, despite all these announcements and everything, Warner Brothers is moving slow right now. And I think they're showing incredible wisdom and incredible restraint. They're going to see how Justice League plays out, and then they'll start putting their foot on the gas with all the various projects. So I think Warner Brothers is handling it perfectly, but I do think they need to get to the point where they get one or two more in a row Wonder Woman movies. By Wonder Woman movies, I mean movies that are both critically and fan appreciated and make some money at the box office. If they can do that, then if they wanted to, they could start tinkering with the idea of 4, 5, 6 movies a year if they want, but they need to get a couple more hits. And when I say hit, I don't just mean money, I mean critic response, audience response. They need a couple more hits under their belt. If Justice League can work out the way I think it's looking like it's going to work out and the way we all hope it's going to work out, that's number 2 in a row. Then Aquaman, hopefully, will be number 3 in a row, and then they can be off to the races. But, you know, if Justice League, for whatever reason, fails or bombs or for whatever, you know, terrible tragedy happens to it, then they need to rethink their strategy. And we'll see how that goes from there. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for this Saturday edition of the John Campea podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, while you're here, do me a favor, click that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the John Campea YouTube channel where I got my daily podcast as well as lots of other videos throughout the days as well. And make sure you're following me on social media, simply on Facebook and on Twitter, just at John Campea. Special shout out and thanks to my Patreon supporters. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. And until next time, bye-bye.